Welcome to the show. Lead singer of Maiden Cane, one of the best bands, I think, in the area.
Thank you. Thank you.
I like to refer to you guys as the mighty Maiden Cane.
Oh, thank you. I like that.
Because the great thing about you guys is that you're all such professional musicians, right?
Mhm.
And I think you're all top shelf. Like each one of you guys could like substitute in like, Motley Crue or Def Leppard if they needed to, right?
Yeah.
So you're all professional musicians. And when you guys get together, having a good time,
Yeah.
and you're playing the best rock, man. You're playing I call it classic hard rock
Mhm.
because this was music from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but more so the 70s, 80s, I guess.
Right.
That has edge to it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
not like Eric Clapton and Cream and that which is great stuff. It's more like AC/DC, like the Van Halen,
Yeah.
like a stuff
Boston, Journey, Styx,
Yeah.
Kansas. Yeah, absolutely.
So why the name Maiden Cane?
So the name was there when I got there. And Maiden cane is a grass that grows in the swamps of Florida, and it chokes out the life of all the vegetation around it.
Really?
And then it takes over. It's a invasive water weed. So, but that's what it actually is. But the name came from our bass player Jim Kiefer, back in somewhere in the 70s. I mean, he's been around forever. He had a band back then called Maiden Cane, and his idea was to kind of bring back what that band stood for back in the 70s, which was taking that arena rock sound and bringing it to smaller venues, more accessible venues. And at the time, it was in real time. Now it's about bringing you back to that time in history.
And let's face it, it's a cool name.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to take people on a journey, right? We're going to talk about Maiden Cane today,
Mhm.
and then we're going to talk about you personally,
Okay.
how you got into music,
All
right?
right.
Some of your favorite concerts growing up, your
Mhm.
favorite records you were listening to. What inspired you to become a musician?
Okay.
You know?
Sounds good.
So the first thing I want to say is, again, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
If anyone hasn't seen you yet, I highly recommend people go see a Maiden Cane show because
Me too.
I think from the first note to the very last note, it's a professional performance. The way that you conduct yourself on stage, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Your mannerisms, your gestures, you're pros. I mean, it's obvious you guys are pros. And I want you to tell me, I guess we could do that now, who's in the band,
Okay.
okay? And give me a little history
Sure.
behind the band.
Sure. Well, there's, let's see, we'll start with Jim Kiefer. So Jim Kiefer is timeless. He is beyond time. We have no idea how old he is. He's been around forever. His pictures of him date back to the 1800s even. I'm joking, of course. But anyway, Jim is our bass player. He was big in the Peoria, Illinois scene back in the 70s and the 80s. He grew up with guys from REO Speedwagon, Dan Fogelberg. He was all there.
So he's legit.
Yeah. So he was there when this was all happening. And then he always had one of the bands that was playing in the bigger places with all these bands as they were coming up. So he had the opportunity to get to know a lot of them back in the day. And then going forward, he's maintained some of those relationships. And that's kind of how we've gotten a lot of the shows that we've gotten, the opportunities that we've gotten because of his clout and who he knows.
And as a bass player myself, he's a legitimate bass player.
He's a good bass player,
Sounds
absolutely.
fantastic.
And
He's got great gear.
he's kind of mentally on autopilot, and he's got the refrigerator-sized bass cabinet. I mean, he can keep up with the best of
Does he
them.
lug it himself?
He used to. Now he goes with a slightly smaller setup, but
Yeah, we all do.
he lugs it himself, and he's amazing that he can still do what he does, at his age. And for a long time, he was doing it puffing on a cigarette too, but I think he recently stopped that. So there's Jim, and then Jim was the founder, basically, of the band, along with Joey Gilbert. Joey Gilbert's the lead guitar player. He was he's been with a bunch of different bands, sort of in the general area of Southern Florida for a while, and then he played for a little while with Sam Andrew from Big Brother and the Holding Company. And then it was another brush with fate there. And him and Jim Kiefer sort of came together and both had this idea to put together a band of seasoned professionals who were sort of retiring from music into the area and build a show around that was a callback.
And let's face it, in this area, Charlotte County, Sarasota County, there's a ton of quality musicians.
That's right. We have a lot of musicians, a lot of great musicians.
You were fortunate that you came across really good guys, yourself included.
Absolutely. And so they decided they wanted to do this, and they were going to make this arena rock show that was a callback to the great concerts that we used to go to in the 70s and 80s. Not necessarily tributing any one particular act, but doing any of those bands as good as any tribute act or better, and then getting that show, that concert feel going where you have big lights and big
So can we call it arena rock? Is that a good
arena
term?
rock. That's exactly what we were calling it. Now and then, past that, we've got let's see, we got Billy Day. He's on the keyboards. He's also on backup vocals. This is a seasoned, conservatory educated keyboard player, piano player. He also plays guitar, but he doesn't let anybody know that. And he happened to know Joey. They were both working at Troll Music in Venice at the time. So we got to have a keyboard player, bring him in on it too. And then let's see, we got Rick Duncan. He's our drummer. Rick Duncan has been. Oh, and by the way, Billy. Before I move too far past him, Billy has been on one side or another of very many professional acts over the years. He opened for the Romantics in the '80s when they were actually high on. I hear the secrets that you keep when you're talking in your
Sure,
sleep,
of course.
And he had a band called Digital Hair in Indiana that actually had a single out for a little while, I believe, and they were, big hair, big '80s. It was all that was in real time. So anyway, he had his brushes with Destiny, and then came along to Maiden Cane, and then there's Rick Duncan, who is actually technically the newest member of the band. He's been with us about 5 years, and he's another one. He used to own Paradox Studios in Northport, which through the '90s up to I think it was through the '90s up to now was one of the more popular studios in our area of Southwest Florida. And Rick produced a ton of stuff. He produced stuff for Brian Johnson. He's produced stuff for, oh gosh, one of the guys from Crimson Glory. If you remember that name, lots of big bands that have come through the area. He's done work with individuals on solo work or whatever. And he played with a band called, oh boy, he's going to hit me because I can't remember what it was. It slipped my mind. He had a band that actually went out
It's
and,
fine.
they opened for Kansas, and they had, 4 albums out, I think, all in the prog rock prog rock genre. So, anyway, Rick came to us basically as a sub, and then we just said, like, "Why are we still looking?
'Cause he's that good.
Just keep Rick."
So who was the original lead singer?
Original lead singer was his name was Rob Ferran, and he's a great guy. He was good friends with Joey, and he sang with them for the better part of a year. And I think at first he joined it thinking it was going to be a fun gig to do here and there, and maybe they were going to play some bars and do some things, and just have a fun with it. But then everybody got really serious about it, and opportunities started to come in to open up for major headliners. And I think maybe it was something that Rob had not really counted on and wasn't sure if he was ready to go through with. So at that point, they kind of had sort of I guess a mutual parting, and they found me. And my part of the story is that I was in Connecticut. I was in a band called The Mix, which was the same thing, only up in Connecticut. And I had a powerhouse keyboard player named Ed Burns, who was with the Dennis Dunaway project. Dennis Dunaway is the original bass player for Alice Cooper. And right before I met him, he played with Alice Cooper at the induction to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So this guy was a monster. The whole band was monsters. And we would pack. I mean, Connecticut doesn't have a scene like they do here.
Sure.
Connecticut's got small bars, lots of them. They have a couple that could maybe fit 200 or 250 people, and that's about it. And we were packing 500 people into those places because no one had seen anything like this. And it was the same principle.
What year are we talking?
We are talking, let's see, what year are we in now? 24. We're talking 2013, 12
Okay.
in that area. And the mix was a long building process. Took about 4 years to get it to where it was, but it was huge. And then I found out I had to leave Connecticut because we couldn't afford to stay there anymore. So at that point, I was going to give up basically the best band in Connecticut and come down I had resolved I was coming down to Florida to sit on the beach and play Jimmy Buffett covers
No,
for the
why
rest of my
Punta Gorda?
life.
Or Venice, I should say.
Venice, because my wife's family had owned a house there forever, and they had vacationed there, and everybody's plan originally was to come down here, and her family had slowly all migrated to Venice because they couldn't afford Connecticut either. So finally, there came a time where we looked at the mortgage, and it was upside down, and nobody would refinance, and one company would refinance the mortgage, and then they'd sell it to another company, and that company would refuse to modify. So there was nothing we could do.
Okay, so you come down to Venice. You're an experienced singer from
Yeah,
a really killer band.
yeah.
And then what did you do? Put an ad in the
I
classified?
put
Did
an
you?
ad on Bandmix,
Okay, I've
and
used
I
band mix
and I
too.
basically said in the ad, "Look, I realize that this is a unicorn that I'm looking for. On the off chance if there's any arena rock style bands down there, please look me up. Otherwise, it's Jimmy Buffett covers on the beach for the rest of my
Sure.
life." I was here,
And you would have been content doing that, right?
well, for a
Do
while.
you play guitar as well?
I do, but you know, I'm not well like one of these guys. I'm a guy who can sit there and hack out
Sure.
a few songs.
But people love that down here.
Yeah, it works. But I was here for one day. I was standing in Walmart with my wife while she was shopping, and my phone rang, and it was a guy named Jim Kiefer.
There you
And
go.
in my head, I'm like, he was in Cinderella, wasn't he? So
Different Jim Keeper,
it
right?
just sounded, yeah. Well, that was Tom Kiefer, but so oh sorry. So I was just like, whoa, this is pretty cool. And he told me about what they were doing, and I'm like, that's right up my
Fate,
alley.
man. Lightning
Yeah.
struck.
And he's like, well, he goes, how do you feel about coming and checking out the band? And I says, yeah, I'd love to. So he's like, all right, well, come on out this weekend. That was Sunday. I came out and we'll check it out. We'll see how we get along. We'll try it out. So I come out Sunday night. We get together. I know all their songs. And we played through the whole set.
You just nailed it,
It
right?
was perfect.
They probably
Yeah,
loved you.
there was nothing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
knew them all. I knew
They were
everything they were
excited.
playing. So they were like, wow. And so they called me the next day and they're like, look, we have a gig opening for Warrant next Saturday at the Englewood Event Center. Our guy who's singing doesn't want to do it, but we don't want to lose this gig. How do you feel about doing it? And I'm like, sure, absolutely. So that was Sunday. On Monday, we had our first rehearsal. Saturday, we went and played that gig.
And the set list was what, a 60-minute set
It
list?
was a 60-minute
And you
set list.
probably knew most of the material
I knew
already.
everything that was on it
So it was
already.
easy for you.
Yeah.
See, what's great about you guys is that whenever a major act comes to town, like Def Leppard,
Mhm.
Foghat, you guys get to open for them. That's pretty impressive, man.
It's great when it happens.
You know?
Absolutely.
Because we jacked up, we aspire for that,
Yeah.
Like our biggest thing is Twisted Fork.
hmm
Like we'll play for an Aerosmith tribute or a Bon Jovi tribute,
hmm
and we'll get a chance to play in front of their audience, which could be
Yeah.
1,000 people.
Right.
Because we both share the stage at Twisted Fork, and we love that place,
Mhm.
right?
It's a great place.
I mean, how fantastic is that? Marcus is great.
oh, wonderful.
Bert's great.
Wonderful.
The gear is great. The technicians are great. Every time we go there, man, we feel like freaking rock stars.
Oh,
man,
it's awesome.
We
We were in a great position with them because we were just kind of getting our reputation together, getting started. We'd already opened up for a couple of big names, a couple of national headliners, and we got into a great relationship with Bert. And this is going back before Twisted Fork was there. And it was just Bert's Black Widow Harley Davidson. And he started
different
doing
Bert.
same
The two Berts, Bert Parsley
right.
and the Bert from Black Widow.
Bert from Black Widow.
Right.
I can't think of his last name right now, but yeah. So the Parsley brothers had not come onto the scene yet. And Bert had this vision of turning his back parking lot into this big concert area. And we said, we'll partner with you. We'll do whatever you want to do. We'll bring people. We'll bring you this Arena Rock show. Let's do it. So for quite a few years, we were their go-to band for big biker events. And then they moved from day events to night events. And that paved the way for the Twisted Fork. And they had a whole lot of trouble getting that approved.
I remember
And-
I watched it grow, and
Yeah.
build.
And we all waited like patiently. And then COVID came and it got set back more. And then finally they got it all together. They got the ducks in a row. The city was happy. Everybody was happy. And Twisted Fork went up.
So for those listening that don't know about the Twisted Fork, it's on El Jobin Road in Port Charlotte,
Mhm.
and it's a fantastic restaurant. There's
Yeah.
inside dining, there's outside dining.
Mhm.
I think the food's delicious. I think the menu has been very well thought.
Mhm.
There's some really unique items on there, as well as your standards.
Yeah.
And then the music's mostly free.
Mhm.
I mean, there'll be some ticketed events like, you get a big Van Halen tribute or somebody coming through and they'll charge for
Right.
that, tickets. And they charge for you guys. I understand you're playing New Year's Eve there.
Yes.
That's the second year now, right? Didn't you play there last year?
We
New Year's
did.
Eve?
Yeah. Yep. It's our second year doing New Year's. I can't think if we did the third one, but yeah, this is definitely, we're definitely there for New Year's this year.
And it's also smart that you don't play a lot because
Right.
the problem that we had as a young band, Jack, that we played too much. And what
Mhm.
happened was we cannibalized ourselves in the sense that people kind of like they loved us, but they didn't want to come see us every Friday and Saturday.
Right. Right. That's the truth. And that was part of the condition of doing this was that we couldn't saturate the area. We had to be somewhat exclusive when we played or no one would come.
Now, the style of music that you play goes over really, really well in this area, especially Charlotte County.
Yeah,
Charlotte County loves rock and roll, man.
absolutely.
There's a lot of bikers. There's a lot of retirees. There's a lot of men and women, 60, 70, that just love the classic rock.
Absolutely.
So for an example, other bands that we're friends with, Rock Candy,
Mhm.
great band. They do really well there.
Mhm.
Sunset Strip.
Mhm.
They do really, really well. They're a band called the Lost Boys. I don't think they've played there yet, but
They were
they're
great.
they're another
Are
great
they still
band.
together?
They are.
Okay,
In fact,
great.
they're gonna be on here, I think, next week.
Oh, excellent.
Mark Borgmeyer.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's gonna be here
Good people.
with Dane,
I
the
was
lead singer.
I was good friends with their keyboard player. I think it was their keyboard player. I could be thinking of another band though, but that's a name I've heard of
But
before.
but I think the key to success in those bands is the lead singer because you guys choose songs that are very difficult to sing.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, for an example, I have a female singer, so there's some things that she can get high on that, like a Robert Plant thing, right?
Right.
That most men couldn't do. Steve
Right.
Perry's another great example.
Mhm.
But you, my friend, can nail all that stuff.
It's been when I came down here, Maiden Cane plays down a half step. That's a little secret that I'm telling all your
Well, most
audience.
bands do, right, these
Right. And it
days.
just sounds heavier live.
Yeah.
It's a clean sound. And I was against it when we first came down.
Well, you learned everything in the original key.
Right.
So it must have been a blessing then when we stepped down because then it was like, all right, I don't have to go as
Well, it only took 2 gigs in the Florida sun to remind me for me to learn what a blessing it is to be down a half step because to keep it all. I mean, Maiden Cane, as you know, is all 100% all the time. There is no lull in the vocals of what we play. Everything is way up there all the time. And I'm not getting any younger.
Are you
You know?
happy with your supporting background singers or do you wish they
Oh
sang
yeah.
more?
No, I love it. What I love is a couple of instrumentals, to be honest. But
That's fair.
the other part of that is that people tend to, when the singer's not on stage, when the focal point isn't on stage, and the band just kind of sits back and puts their heads down and does what they do, people back away from the
Or
stage
they
and
go
go
get a
sit
beer.
down or go get a beer or go to the bathroom.
I
So
know, but you're entitled to a break,
I
For an
am.
example,
I am.
I'm not a lead singer, but I do sing lead on about 4 or 5 songs
Mhm.
just to give my singer a break.
Right. Right. And we're working into that now with what we're playing on New Year's. We actually will be having some of the other guys guest a front vocal.
Now, do you ever have guest musicians come on and jam with you guys, or is it just basically
Generally, no,
the hobby?
because what we have everything down to exact sciences, like where the songs stop, where they start, things that run together, little things we do in the songs,
Maybe some mashups there, some medleys,
mashups, medleys. It's all kind of set. So very
synchronized.
rarely do we have somebody
Do you
come
even
up.
plan when you're going to talk to the crowd? Like
Yeah.
you'll say 3, 4 songs, and then you're going to say hello,
Mhm.
thanks for coming.
Yep.
3, 4 songs. Hey, don't forget to take care of your bartenders, waitresses,
Mhm.
blah blah. That's what we're trying to get there too.
Yeah, it's a lot of bands. That's one of the spots where a lot of bands miss the boat is because they stop after every song and they stand around and look at each other and try to figure out what
Oh
they're
my
going to do
God, don't
next.
you hate it when guitar players have to tune every freaking song?
Oh, yeah.
My guy doesn't, unfortunately, but
Mhm.
there's another band that I jam with. That guy's tuning every freaking song. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, and you don't realize how much I mean, I appreciate the stat. I appreciate the state that any band is in as they get from one point to another. And some bands just want to hang out in bars and jam, and other bands want to put on a better presentation, and other bands don't put on a good presentation, but wonder why they don't get the good
But
gigs.
but but you're cognizant of it, so therefore you're doing it, and you're getting the
Extremely.
good gigs, and you're making the bigger money.
That's right. That's right.
Now, are you doing a 3-hour show, a 4-hour show?
90 minutes.
So all your shows are 90 minutes.
90 minutes.
Okay, and everybody knows this.
Yep.
Okay. Now, are you doing 2 45-minute sets, or are you just doing the straight 90?
No, we've always done a straight 90, except for an occasion like New Year's where we might stop just before the ball drops, have everybody get their drinks and everything, take like a 5 to 10-minute break, and then we come up and play out the last 20 minutes of the night.
So you might even have an opening act. You might have a
Yes.
band that come up and play, so to keep the
Yes.
time. Yeah, great.
Yeah. But 90 minutes, I mean, it's like I said, it's all high energy. It's all the time. I'm 50. Well, I'm 30 for the 22nd time. And it's not easy to keep that level of energy up the whole night long, even if it's only for 90 minutes. I don't know how some of the guys who are out there today, like Bruce Springsteen and Mick Jagger at their age, how they're doing what they're doing.
You know what's
still.
incredible? It's funny you mentioned those guys because I was thinking about that.
Uh-huh.
They have such a large repertoire. There's so many songs that the Stones do
Mm-hmm.
and Bruce Springsteen does. And sometimes
Yeah.
his band must be go crazy because
Oh,
he may not release the
absolutely.
set list
Absolutely.
until the day of the show.
I know it's
So
crazy.
now these guys are like, oh my gosh, we got to brush up on these songs. So we haven't done them in a long time. I know
Mhm.
Mick Jagger one time waited to the an hour before the show.
Really?
So the Stones had to be ready because he might do these. And sure enough, he picked songs.
Wow.
They did a movie, Martin Scorsese, Shine a Light.
Uh-huh.
And they talk about that. Remember
Really?
they were asking for the set list and Mick's still working on it right
No
before the
kidding.
show. And then they went ahead. Maybe
Oh,
it was
that's
just,
great.
but So you have a lot of songs. So are you trying to keep it fresh? Are you mixing things around?
Yeah.
Like sometimes I find that we get in a rut where we our set list will play the same groupings.
Hmm.
I just out of either laziness or boredom, but they work.
Right.
But recently we're saying, okay, guys, not only are we going to add some new material, but we're going to start changing the order of some of these songs. What are your thoughts
Hmm.
on that?
Well, it's true. You got to mix it up a little bit. And I found that you could play the same 20 songs, but if you take the back 10 and put it where the first 10 were, people don't realize you're playing new stuff. It's just funny the way that works. But for a long time, Maiden Cane was in that rut. Because when we started off, we were rehearsing every week. We may have only had one gig a month or one gig every 6 weeks, but we still played every week. So for our Maiden Cane's we're in our 10th year now. Actually, we're in our 11th year now. And we were playing the same songs. We had about five that we'd interchange in and out, but basically the rest of it was all the same. And probably right before COVID, we were pretty much like, I couldn't sing. I was like, I'm not singing any of those songs again. We got to get all new ones, dump all of them, get all new ones because I can't handle doing those songs anymore. I mean, they're still great songs,
I agree with you 100%, man.
but you get tired of
Oh
doing that
yeah, man.
stuff.
How many
Yeah,
times did you play Tom Petty and Brian Adams before you go insane?
exactly. So I started actually kind of we sort of had Jim did a lot of the song picking, and we played to the strengths of the people in the band. I mean, if we're playing a song that somebody's going to struggle with, we don't play that song. We don't want to risk not sounding good on a particular song if we can't do it well. So we find something else.
Well, that was my question. What's the process of the band? So, for an
Hmm.
example, is Jim the one saying, "Okay, these are songs I recommend,"
At
and
first,
maybe he'll come to you first and say, "Can you sing these before I even attempt
yeah,
to get the band to learn
at
them?"
first it started off that Joey would pick the songs that Rob could sing. Then when I came along, Joey was like, "Ah, you could sing everything. I don't care." And then Jim would kind of pick the songs based on what he already knew and what we were playing well. Probably we did that for about 5 years. And then I started stepping in and saying, "All right, guys, I got to start picking the songs
I
because
agree. Look, I'm the leader and the founder of my
that's
band,
right."
and
And
I always let my singer
yeah,
pick the set list, write the set list.
right. And the singer's the front person. We're standing in the front. We're not concentrating on an instrument or anything else. We're looking at the crowd and we're seeing when that crowd is looking at us. We're seeing their reactions. And when we pull into a song that we think is great and people start to wander off or whatever, it's like, I know that's like, we play Perfect Strangers. Now, that's an amazing freaking song. People don't get it. Most people don't get
You're
it.
right.
We play it at like a prog show. It goes over great.
Sometimes sometimes we think our audience is actually smarter than they really are. They just want to hear "Keep Your Hands to Yourself."
Well, kind of. Yeah, and it's true. And when you're the singer, you can see what's happening.
Yeah.
Like we thought it'd be a great idea to go out and play Smoke on the Water because nobody plays Smoke on the Water because everybody
Right. No,
knows
I
Smoke on
think
the
I would
Water.
enjoy hearing that song.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I watched the audience, and as soon as Joe, da, 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 the whole place went freaking
I love
nuts.
it. Love it.
1 minute into the song, everybody was like, "Oh, no, not done with this one yet. I'm gonna go get it."
Really?
Yeah, because Smoke on the Water goes on for about 5.5 minutes. And
Well, yeah, I mean, you have the ability to, alter that. I mean, you can do a short version or you
it
can
would have to be into
yeah.
something else. So it's a great song and people respect it when you do it. But it's also like I think everybody just heard it so much over the years that, it depends
So
on where
in
you
that
are.
case where a song maybe doesn't work out for you
Hmm.
guys,
Hmm.
do you then shelf it and
Yeah.
say you just abandon it or do you try to make it work?
Well, it depends. Sometimes we'll try to make it work with something else. We'll blend it with something else. More often than not, though, it just kind of gets shelved. We thought that the final countdown, right? For a long time, that was in a commercial, and everybody was like, "You guys should play this song. You guys should play this song." And we played it, and it never really did much. People didn't really go crazy for it. And it wasn't that easy to perform. It's a difficult song to
Well, it's got
perform.
that huge keyboard at the beginning.
Yep, and it's got a ripping guitar solo from John Norum, and it's like one of those solos that Joey's like, "All right, I have to work that one right up until the show. So if we're playing it, you got to let me know several weeks in advance." So we did it. We even opened shows with it, and it fell a lot flatter than I expected it to. And secret, we're going to pull it out on New Year's, but we just kept it.
Well, that makes sense, right? It's the final
That's
countdown.
right. So we put it aside for certain shows that seemed like it might work, but it was a surprise that it didn't go over as well as we thought it would.
Now, who's booking the band? Do you have an agent? You have somebody? Are you
No,
doing it yourself?
predominantly Jim books the band
Okay.
because
Does he have to say no sometimes to venues that are too small?
Yeah.
because there's a lot of really good venues, but
Mhm.
they can't handle your crowd.
That's right. Yeah. No, and the stage wise, we have to have a stage that's a certain size. We have to have the right PA system. We don't bring the sound system, so we let the venues know that they're going to need, if they don't have a sound system already that we've kind of approved or whatever. We tell them they need to bring in a sound company that is capable of supporting this sound, and we give them the outline.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to play some of those Paragon seafood festivals,
Oh yeah.
and we've done some of the Sarasota downtown stuff.
Yep.
Unfortunately, there were 2 really good festivals that got canceled because of the hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was on Anna Marie Island, which we love doing. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, these are companies like Mojo.
Mojo's great.
They'll
Yep.
bring in a quality system,
That's right.
and then we
That's
just
right.
plug and play. It's
And
backline. It's fantastic, right?
that's right, and we'll refer them to Mojo or, there's been several, Tektronix. There's a lot of good sound companies out there, and, we'll refer the venue to them, but we first have to be able to say, okay, 1, how big is the stage? How wide is the stage? We used to be a 6-piece, we're a 5-piece now, but when we were a 6-piece, you got
So did you have 2 guitar players back then?
2 guitar players, and
How did that work out?
it was great.
They weren't stepping on each other?
We took a lot of care to make sure that didn't happen. And I mean, Joey's the lead guitar player. That was
He's the
always
alpha.
yeah, he's the alpha. That was always the rule. And there was some, emotional issues from time to time with the other fella, because he
I've seen it
felt
in every
like
band.
he
Every
felt like
band
he
it
didn't
happens.
get his due
Yeah.
diligence sometimes. But he also understood that the opportunity he was getting to be in this group was a great one, and to sit under the tutelage of a guy like Joey Gilbert or whatever. But he did like to have his solos, and he did like to have his spotlight moments, and we tried to give him as much as we could. But we when he decided to retire just about a year ago, maybe less, we sort of band met. We talked about it. We figured, are we going to get another guitar player? Are we going to go on as a 5-piece? And we kind of noticed that we were able to clean up our sound a lot by not replacing the second guitar player. Joey's capable of doing a lot more than he was doing because there was a second guitar player there. So now we sort of put the stick to Joey there and said, all right, you're going to have to step up if you're going to be the only
Well, you know
guitar
who else
player.
has to step up is the keyboard player at that point.
Absolutely. And the way Billy sold me on it was, he said, what if I got a keytar? And I'm like, if you're going to get a keytar and play it cool, and make it look like a cool instrument, then we can try this. And we did, and we were really impressed by how clean it got. Not only that, but it improved, Jim, the bass player. It improved his hearing. He could hear a lot better, which at his age, I mean, that's a great thing. And he could hear a lot better. He was screwing up a lot less. We could all hear better on stage. We could hear the vocals better.
Well, I always ask my guests this question. Are you guys using inner ears or using wedge monitors?
I use in-ears. Billy uses in-ears. The rest of the band uses wedges.
I agree that the lead singer should always have them, and I'll tell you why.
Absolutely.
It's going to help your voice,
Mhm.
protect it from screaming.
Mhm.
Plus, when I use them as a bass player and I have to sing backups and harmonies, I'm much better
You can hear it.
because I can hear everything and I can hear.
Sure.
So I'm 100% for them, but I understand the temptation not to want to use them when you're
Right.
outside and you want to get loud and you want to hear,
Oh, yeah.
what's going on. I
It's
mean,
disorienting at first, especially when they're noise canceling and they're in your ears and you can't hear the audience, or you can't hear what's coming back at you. It took a while to get used to
is there a
that.
special brand that you like to use, or
Well, I'm a Shure man. I use
are they
Shure
molded?
everything. We had molds made, but at the end of the day, I ended up using non-molded
Well, how do
ones.
they stay in for you?
They turn in and twist.
But I'm saying did you put a little adapter on there to make it fit right? Or you just got lucky
I got
that out of the
lucky.
box they
I
fit?
had to. Mine came with mine came with different
Right.
earpieces. Some have like a corkscrew,
Yes.
and that kind of
See,
stuck in there. And then the wire that goes over, on this set is turnable. It's like adjustable and it's stiff. So if I turn the top half, it holds it into my ear. So it works. Now with my hair and everything, though, it tends to get tangled and everything. And if I
sure.
take one out, it's real hard to get it
Do
back
you run
in.
the back of your shirt in the
Mhm.
cord? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do you have to charge them up? Because there was a time one time I went to use my inners and, I forgot to charge them.
Oh, they take
That
actual.
lasted about 60 seconds.
Yeah, right. They take batteries, but mine have like, when the battery door closes, there's a space there for some reason. I don't know if it's a design flaw or what, but I don't jump around too much. I got to be careful. But if I jump a little bit, sometimes a battery will pop
Yeah,
up and
no,
out.
little things like that happen,
Yeah.
yeah, or the
Oh,
cord sometimes comes out just enough that
just enough.
you're
Right.
like, "What the hell?"
Or I'll go down to talk to somebody and the wire will get tangled around the bottom of my shoe, and I'll stand back up and the whole thing goes flying.
So, as most bands, I'm sure you have funny stories about things like that. For an example, sometimes I would accidentally step on my tuner.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden my guitar would go out and I'm like, what's going on? I look around like it's somebody else's fault,
Yes,
you know?
that's right. Well, that's what you have to do. Something goes out of whack, you gotta look around.
Another time I knocked my microphone over, just went,
Uh-huh.
you know, like little things happen
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
There's been times. Are you talking about on stage or
yeah,
all yeah, on stage? With Maiden Cane, I've over the years, I've gotten really careful to look where I'm going and look all around me before I make a move. So I've been pretty fortunate that I haven't had any like really embarrassing moments. We also have 1 to 3 guys on the side of the stage that will come up if something gets tangled in something.
nice. You got
Yeah.
a little crew.
Yeah.
But I assume that your area is wireless, right?
Your
Your mic is wireless.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
are your guitar players wireless as well?
No, and that's something you gotta look out for. Joey prefers to be wired.
Right.
So
A lot
when
of
he
guitar players do
so when he
because they
does
claim it changes the tone.
cleaner signal.
Right.
Absolutely. So when he makes a move across the stage or whatever, I gotta watch out for that wire. And when we had the 2 guitar players, I always found it really impressive that when they crossed paths and crossed back, they didn't tangle the wires. That I gotta give them
Or
credit for
maybe they just
that.
got lucky.
Probably, right, right, absolutely. Jim was wireless for a while on the bass, but he's back to being wired now too.
I'm the same thing. I was wireless. I thought it was cool,
Mhm.
especially a twisted fork. I can walk around.
Yep.
But now I'm like, you know what? Where am I going? And who wants to see me anyway? I'm just going to I'm going to stay
Right,
wired. I'm going to stay in front of my rig.
right, right.
You
I
know,
like when there's 2 guitar players, I always liked when the 2 of them would get together, and they did. My rule of thumb, and I've told this to everybody, is like when I'm not center stage, someone else has to be. So if I go over to the right side of the stage and I'm singing to the audience over there, and that center stage is open, one of the guitar players got to move into it and start doing something there because center stage is the focal point, and it's usually me. But if it's not me, somebody else can jump in and be there, and because you're going to get attention if you cross the center stage, you're going to get attention
sure.
right then and there.
Let's talk about production,
Sure.
your lighting. How do you
Mhm.
feel about your lighting? Are you happy with your production?
So that's always been a point of contention with Maiden Cane because we rely on the company they bring in to do the sound to also do the lighting. And there's been a few times where we have taken for granted that it's going to be ample, and it has not been. We've played almost in the dark before. The venue shall remain nameless, but we went and they put 2 4 bars up on the stage, and we're playing at night. And there's a 4 bar over there and a 4 bar over there, and that's it. That's all they provided. And this was like this again. I mean, Jim is a bass player, and he's a friendly guy, and he does business old school. So we do have contracts, we do have riders, and they do specify these things. But if you don't enforce them, it doesn't make any difference. So people would be like, "Oh yeah, we'll give you good lighting, we'll give you ample lighting." Well, not everybody understands what that means. So you go out on stage, and there's we got plenty of lights, 2 4 bars. It's like a meme. It's a Spinal Tap, a moment right there. So I've always kind of said, well, if we don't want to have problems with these things, then we have to have our own
Yeah.
production
Just
setup.
have it with you. You may not
Absolutely.
need it, but have it with you in case you
Absolutely.
do.
So instead of having the venue pay to rent those things or to bring in a production company that has them, they pay us more to bring those things. So it's all the same money. It's just a matter of who's getting it.
Do you guys use the fog or the smoke?
Try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's possible, we try to.
Does it ever affect your voice or get in your face?
Fortunately, no. We played one show at like the Legion or something in Northport, and somebody was so excited to use that smoke that they just kept that thing going. And I couldn't even see
That's
across the
funny.
stage, and that got in my throat a little bit. But for the most part, it doesn't bother me.
Now, do you guys travel? Because I'm sure the temptation to travel is big because tribute bands that play what you're playing, I know
Hmm.
they make very good money.
Hmm.
So there's probably because I know there's bands that are coming down here.
Hmm.
Obviously, you guys are already down here.
Yep.
So do you ever get the desire to want to move? I mean, not move, but travel to other markets?
So we've gone to Indiana. We played out in Indiana with Brian Howe from Bad Company. He passed away a
I
couple
know.
years
I met
ago.
Brian Howe.
Great guy.
Yeah, Fort Myers Beach. He lived down there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because we went out to Indiana or Illinois to open for him, but he lives right here in Florida.
Yeah.
So we went out there and we played a show out there on the riverfront in Illinois, and that was really cool. Our plan was always to go like from maybe like Fort Myers up to Tampa and kind of up and down the coast, this coast.
Yeah.
So that's always been what we've
Yeah. What
done.
about OCC? You guys play there?
We played there once or twice when they first opened, and then I'm not sure what happened. I think Jim and somebody there,
Victor, maybe?
maybe it was Victor, I don't know, somebody got rubbed the wrong way about something. and we haven't been able to get
Because
back in
you
there.
guys would kill it there. I
Yeah.
mean, really kill it.
We played there with Autograph and Autograph? Yeah, it was Autograph and Autograph and Night Ranger.
Interesting.
Yep.
So are these all good experiences when you open up for a major band like
Mhm.
that? And some of these bands still have some of the original members, some
Yeah.
of them don't. Is it a positive experience for you? Is it
Every
like
one of them's
have you
been
they've been
fantastic.
cool?
It's been amazing because I don't know, you don't know what to expect from these people, and some of them are your rock and roll heroes. Like, we opened for Night Ranger at Englewood Event Center when it was open, and we got there for sound check, and we walked in, and they were supposed to do an unplugged night, but they ended up playing full bore because they heard us, and they're like, "We're not playing unplugged after you guys did that." So, so we went in there, and they were rehearsing. They were right there playing, Brad Gillis, all the guys just right there.
Sure.
And we sat down and they're talking to us. They're like, "How'd you guys like that? Did you like the way we did that? What do you think? Should we do this here? Should
So
we
there's
go there?"
respect on both sides.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then when they were done finally, we got like a whole show. When they were done, everybody but Brad Gillis went backstage. Brad Gillis came out and sat down in the audience and said, like, "All right, guys, I'm ready. Let's go."
Well, you guys are really good, so I'm sure he enjoyed seeing you
It
guys
was
there.
incredible. But you got Brad Gillis,
Yeah.
the guy who stood in for Randy Rhoads is sitting there in the
Wow.
audience and he's joking with us too. Like Pete starts playing, Pete was our retired guitar player. He starts playing,
Sister Christian.
yeah, no, it was the other one, Don't Tell Me You Love Me. And we're all like, "Brad, tell him he's playing it wrong." And Brad's like, "Well, you're playing it right, but you got to tune your guitar." And it was it was hilarious. The only one I thought was maybe a little bit un less nice, or at least off in a rush to get away from everybody, was Chuck Wright. But then he was playing with Quiet Riot at the time, and we played with them again 2 months later. And he walked up to me on the stage and was like talking to me like I was his old buddy. He's like, "Oh, great to see you again. Haven't seen you since the beach over there in Florida." I was like, "All right." So yeah.
So when you're doing your like 60 or 90-minute set and you're on a
Mhm.
bill with these kind of bands, are you sticking around to see them and hang out? Or do
Sometimes.
you just split after your set?
Sometimes it depends. It depends how far out we
Because
are.
I think Def Leppard was the headliner on one of the bills you were on, right?
It's coming. That's in January.
Oh, that's coming up still.
Yeah.
There's some really Teslas on there, man.
Yep, Tesla and Def Leppard. Now,
Wasn't the Tesla guy live around here? What's his name?
Frank
Frank?
Hanlon. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, my Billy, the keyboard player, he owns Troll Music in Venice, a music store in Venice, and Frank is in there quite a
You
bit.
know what? If you could help me get him on the show, I'd love to have him on the show.
If I can talk to him, sure. He
Yeah.
moved down here when he's Dickie Betts's son-in-law, I think.
Come on.
Yeah, he's married to one of Dickie Betts's daughters, I think.
Wow.
He's related to Dickie Betts in some way. So when Dickie was sort of heading downhill, Frank and his wife moved here to help take care
Yeah,
of
I think I
him.
caught Dickie's last show at the White Buffalo.
So that's, yeah. And so he just wandered into Troll Music one day, and then for a while he was there like every week. And then Troll Music does shows.
I know, but how do you fit? Troll Music is tiny. How do you guys play there?
So the store where it is now is actually, it's got a 65
Yeah.
seat venue in it.
Right.
And then the store. So 65 seats.
So it's like you got to get lucky to get a Maiden Cane ticket that night.
Yeah. And we've done a few shows there, and we kind of do it as like an exclusive fan appreciation.
And do you go full
show.
full on rock and roll, or do you?
I
tone it down a
wanted to
little
do
bit?
the last one unplugged, but yeah, we did do full on.
Do you remember when Unplugged was so popular?
Yeah.
That a lot of bands started doing it.
Yep.
I got an acoustic electric bass.
Yeah.
And I got a stool.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
It is fun.
Because you can interpret songs differently.
It's cool to mix it up every now and then too, and play it slightly different. And I think people appreciate that too. Although the Heart Tribute Brigade, they played
Yes.
there.
Johnny
And-
Tarja.
Yeah, and they played there, and they played unplugged. And a few people were like, "Well, I wanted to hear the whole thing," So I'm like, "But they're playing unplugged.
can't
That's
please everybody,
cool."
right?
Right, exactly. So yeah, so Frank Hanlon would come in, and then in fact, one of the guys who's opening for us on New Year's is John Salloway. He's a great guy. You should get him on your show. I can get you his number.
Is he a solo guy?
He's a solo guy, but he also plays with a band. He's been considered for a Grammy. He's been all over the place.
Does he
Played
live
up
down
in
here?
Nashville? I believe so, because he plays a Troll like
Damn.
once a month. He's friends with Frank Hanlon. So Frank came to his show, and since Tesla was in town, Tesla's drummer came to the show too, and all three of them played.
It's so funny how many stars live down there.
Absolutely.
Some of the Godsmack guys live in Cape Coral.
Yeah, I heard that. And of course,
Yeah.
Brian Johnson's here too.
Sure.
On 2 occasions, Maiden Cane was supposed to back up Brian Johnson, and the show just didn't end up happening.
So yeah, that would be cool, man.
Mhm. Rick Derringer is here. Quite a few.
Wouldn't that be great for you to sit next to or be on stage with him?
Great.
One of your idols
I'd
growing up,
love it.
right?
I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it.
So let's talk about growing up. Who were some of your favorite
Okay.
bands? Like, what were you listening to 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade? Those
Okay.
formidable years.
So I started off as a major U2 fan, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I loved U2. I thought Bono was the most incredible thing in the world. And right around the time that the Joshua Tree came out, which I think
Which is probably their best
was,
album.
yeah, which was, well, Unforgettable Fire is their best album, but Joshua Tree is a
There's a
great
good debate
album
there.
too. Yeah. And when Joshua Tree came out, they sort of did this. I kind of perceived it as a little bit of a sellout thing. And I sort of became a little concerned about them. Bono started to look a little more haggard. The band slowed down. The energy wasn't there anymore. The music wasn't as.
Do you think they became too political, or were they always political?
They were always political, but at that point, they kind of mainstreamed out a little bit, and they still stayed political, but they started to. I was very big. I was very anti-drug. I didn't want my rock star gods to be on drugs. And Bono had always been like the picture of cleanliness. I mean, he always looked great. He never looked stoned or anything. And when I saw the first videos of Joshua Tree, he was like,
A little drunk, yeah.
I started to think maybe I don't like these guys as much anymore. Coincidentally, I was in high school at the time too, and I gave in to the pull of Led Zeppelin. And now my brother, Steve, my older brother, had always played Led Zeppelin. So I was familiar with Led Zeppelin. He always played Van Halen. So I was always familiar with them. But when I was a freshman in high school, something spoke to me. Led Zeppelin spoke to me
Sure it did.
and it hit me. And
No
then
doubt.
when I heard Robert Plant and I started to appreciate what he was doing, I was like, not only is that one of the greatest things I've ever heard, that's what I want to be when I grow
But
up.
did you at that young age, were you able to sing like him? Could you get up high back there?
Well, yeah, I was 15 or
But were
14.
you trained at all? Like, you just
So
sang in the shower, or did
great
you actually
question.
go get lessons?
Great question. I started off just being able to sing, like, okay, so once I got into, I'll get to that. Once I got into the Led Zeppelin, that led me into the realm of classic rock, hard rock, and then metal. So I loved it, and of course that's all high singing. So I was singing. I was trying to sing a lot like Robert Plant. I wasn't great, but I was getting by. Then I got into like King Diamond and some of the real screamers from, what was the metal scene at the time, like Crimson Glory and Queensryche and all that stuff. And that changed the path. It changed what I was doing. And I wanted to do that stuff. And I wasn't really capable of doing it, but that didn't stop me from doing it. So I pushed it and pushed it until I could. And it got bad. It was some bad sounds coming out of my mouth for a while, and I started to get a bad reputation. All towards the end of high school. Then when I was a senior in high school, I did Pretty Woman with a group of guys, real good musicians in high school, and the crowd just went nuts for it, and it sort of widened me
Which
out.
version of Pretty Woman?
Basically, the Roy Orbison version, although I
Okay.
sang it a little more like David Lee Roth,
Yeah.
and just the crowd went nuts for it, and I realized there was this other. It kind of reawakened me back to this other angle of voice where there's a deeper element to it. So I sang the way I sang for probably about 5 more years, and then the '80s was gone and the '90s moved in, and you couldn't buy an '80s band anymore. Nobody wanted you to sing high. People would come to me and say like, can't you sing a little bit more like Dave Mustaine? Or can you do more
Interesting.
like live? Or and it's like, and I could never sing like that. James Hetfield, I can never growl. That's not, my throat's not designed to do that. So I was in a band with a buddy, and he was a bass player, great guy. And he said to me one day, he said, you're good, but imagine how good you'd be, with some lessons. You're already great.
How old you at this time?
I was probably in my mid 20s, maybe late 20s even. And he said, you're great, And he had to put it that way, because up until that point, everybody was like, "You need lessons," and to me, that meant, "Well, you're not good. You suck." So I'm like, "Psh, screw you then." But the way he said it was, "You're great. Think how much better you
Right.
could be." And then he said, "Plus, you don't want to risk losing that voice of yours if you don't learn how to use it right." I said, "All right." And I found myself a teacher who was a vocal pedagogist. I don't
It's an
never.
SAT word.
Yes, it is too big for me. And I went in there, and I'm like thinking, well, this is great. And I was full of myself. And I said, this woman, these teachers, a vocal teacher who gets me is privileged, to have a guy with my talent, and I was just full of myself,
Sure you were.
you
You
know.
were a young man.
And I went into this girl and I brought my little boom box because she said, come in ready to sing a song for me. And I was going to sing Barracuda, and I was going to blow her right out of the water with my version of Barracuda. So I hit the play button and I nailed it. And I'm like, all right, turn it off. I'm ready for the praise. What do you got? What can you teach me? And she looked at me and she goes, hmm. I'm like, what? And she's like, okay. I'm like, well, how was it? And she's like, we're going to get you out of the rafters. And I'm like, but I'm a tenor. She's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're a baritone. You're a baritone with a good falsetto. Now I'm going to teach you how to use the bottom half of your voice. I'm going to teach you how to put the depth and the support on your
Nice.
voice.
Nice.
Then when we've developed that, you'll see how much better that high end gets. So for about a year and a half, I spent maybe 2 years with her, and she did it. And it was incredible, the difference that it made. And I never would have thought it would have made that difference. Not only that, but it gave me the stamina, because I was done after a half an hour back then. Gave me the stamina to do a full night's worth of
Maybe your
music,
breathing changes too, right?
breathing changes,
Yeah.
taught me relaxation techniques. I mean, that's what vocal breathing is. That's what breathing for voice is it's the same technique as you would use in a meditation breathing. So I was a lot more relaxed, which is what you got to do to sing. And she was just incredible. And she wanted me to go out to New York with her and audition for different plays as her audition partner.
Interesting.
Yeah,
What'd you think of Freddie Mercury?
I love Freddie. Freddie, I love from the
His range
start.
was insane, right?
Incredible. Freddie's talent was incredible. He just everything he did. Always loved Queen. Always respected Queen. His voice was one I really loved singing because he never tore it up. He sang. His voice was beautiful. He sang like Bruce Dickinson always sang. These guys weren't screaming. They
But
weren't
don't you think that
yelling.
Bruce Dickinson is more operatic?
Yes. Yeah. And Freddie was pretty operatic
Yeah, he
too.
was too, right?
Right. And then in just before the vocal teaching came along, I heard Jeff Tate, and someone told me, they said, "Oh, that's Queensryche. You're never going to sound like Jeff Tate." I said, "Well, that guy's amazing, but I'm going to make that my life's goal to sound like Jeff Tate." So at that point, I became a huge Queensryche fan, and he's been probably my biggest influence, and goal to get to was Jeff Tate from
Now
Queensryche.
here's a difficult question. If someone said to you, you have to describe your voice, like
Hmm.
someone says, what do you, like they can't hear you,
Uh huh.
but they want to know what you sound like. How would you describe yourself?
So, because I try to tend to sound like a lot of different people, my natural actual voice is probably somewhere between Jeff Tate, Steve Perry, and Geddy Lee.
Wow.
So between the three of them, I've got the depth of Jeff Tate mixed with a little of the shrillness of Geddy Lee with the nasal part of it, and then the whine of Steve Perry. So between those three, I sort of have
Those are
a
three big names,
a,
man.
a unique little sound.
Now I've heard Fallen Angel,
Hmm.
and I have two questions.
Mm.
Number one is, do you play originals
Mhm.
during your set? And how many do you play and how do you place them?
So we have four originals. Maiden Cane recorded two of them right away: White Lies and Dead Man's Shoes. Dead Man's Shoes actually got picked up at a radio station, and I think it was like Denmark or Sweden or something like that, and then in Australia and in Canada. And it actually charted in one of those countries to the point where we were getting invitations to come play out there. And we were getting like messages on our Facebook, like, when are you coming to tour here? When are you coming to play here? When's your next show? And I'm thinking these are local people, and they're like, oh no, we're in Canada.
That's fantastic.
So Fallen Angel was our first follow-up to those first two songs. So yes, we do usually play 1 to 2 originals in a set, although lately we haven't. but it was always 1 to 2 originals, one sort of towards the top and one towards the
Do you
bottom.
make it a point to set it up and say, "Hey, folks, this is one of our songs"?
So generally speaking, you're not supposed to do that. But I always make a comment about it because Dead Man Shoes has some clout. That one I wouldn't always recognize or say out loud, but I'll usually make a joke about like, all right, the bathrooms are closed. We're going to lay one of our songs on you. We'd like to know what you think about it. So tell us give us some of your feedback with your applause. But right now, nobody can leave. You can't leave where you are. You got to stay right where, and I'd make a joke
Do you
about
think that some of the mistakes that singers make is they have a tendency maybe to talk too much between songs?
it. Yeah.
Like, it's not VH1 storytellers. You don't have to set up every single song,
Yes.
or.
So
And I think some people do that.
they do. And Kevin Cronin is one of them from REO Speedwagon. But no, sorry, Kevin, if you're listening. No, that's true. And you can get into that rut, but singing, speaking to the audience for me is a break. And sometimes I need it. So if I'm talking to you'll know this now, and so will your listeners. If I'm taking a lot of breaks to talk to the crowd, it's because I'm struggling usually, and I need that breather. So if I'm stopping a lot and talking, that's why.
Especially when that red tide was around, we all had
Absolutely.
problems, right?
Oh God, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Now, what's in your cup on stage? What are you drinking?
Purified water. It has to be purified. I can't drink spring water.
Any particular reason?
It bothers my stomach. It's in our rider too, so I'll get like all kinds of like reactions about that. Like, singer can't take spring water, huh? All right, buddy. But it's because it bothers my
Do
stomach.
you ever get reflux?
Um, I don't eat before I play.
Yeah, either do I.
But I did wedding bands for about 8 years, and we'd always have to go up and play after we ate. And yes, reflux was
And
a
there's certain
problem.
foods that set it off more than others, right?
Absolutely, anything fried. Yeah, most typical bar type foods, snack foods, fried foods. Yeah, they'll set it off.
What are some of the exercises or like throat lozenges or things that you
Mhm.
would recommend to an up and coming singer?
So, purified water, first of all. And it's not supposed to be ice cold either. It's supposed to be kind of room temperature ish. My go to is hot water with honey, cinnamon, and Bragg's apple cider vinegar.
That's nasty stuff, that
Oh,
apple cider vinegar,
it'll clear you right up.
right?
That stuff has gotten me through. I only get sick when I have a big show. I get sick once a year. It's going to be before a show. So, so that's my go-to. There's also some stuff they sell at Troll Music called Throat Coat. Throat Coat? Throat.
It's a spray.
It's a spray. Yeah, I don't think there's a Throat Coat tea.
There's something like
also
that,
that's
yeah.
very good. But there's Clear Voice spray. That's good stuff if you can get a hold of it.
Are you cognizant of warming up beforehand, doing your do re mi and all that great stuff?
Not as much as I should be, but there's a difference if I do. Absolutely, absolutely.
And are there some nights when you nail it, and other nights when you're like, "Damn it, you know what? I maybe should have rested my voice a little bit more the night before or something."
It's weird for me. I tend to be. That's true of most singers. For me, I'm like the opposite of that. If I have 2 gigs in a row, the second night I usually sound fantastic. I don't know what it
Interesting.
is. It
But
doesn't
don't
make any
singers,
sense
I
to
mean,
me.
like, guys like you that have to sing at
Mhm.
that level, don't you not wanna do a second night? Like, isn't that like,
No,
don't you dread that?
I turned away from it for the longest time. I'd turn down a second show if we had one for the second night. But then I noticed this consistency, like the 2 or 3 times that I let it happen and said, well, "Okay, we'll do it." The second night, I was like untouchable. I was unstoppable. And the first night I was okay. When we played with Foghat at Calusa Theater down in Fort Myers, I think, and I was only okay. It was like my first gig back after a horrible year, and and I was okay. I was good, but I wasn't pleased with my voice. Like I wasn't pleased with the
Well, you're
stamina.
your own worst critic,
Well,
but
yeah,
some people might say you sounded fantastic,
right.
right?
But I like when what I need is there when I want it. And like I'll go to hit a note and I'll know I'm not going to get there, so I'll curb away from it. But in that case, I was like, I was tired after like 4
Sure,
songs.
man.
So it
It's
was,
physical work, man. People don't
yeah.
realize it.
And it wasn't,
And then you got the heat and humidity that people forget about
oh
in
gosh,
Florida.
yeah, absolutely. But then we played a show the next night and it was like, it was great. I was fantastic. So for me, it's the opposite. But for most
Did
singers,
you ever call off a song because you just weren't feeling it,
yes,
you know?
absolutely.
And do you have a signal to the band? Like,
Hmm.
is it telephone? You tell this guy, he tells the other guy, tells the other guy.
Usually, if I'm going to make an adjustment like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Cause my singer, we're trying to get her to do the hand signals a little bit better and clearer,
Hmm.
you know? She wants to end something.
Yep.
With like so we're looking at our cues better.
Right.
But yes, we do change our set list as needed.
Mhm.
Like she'll come to me and say, "Do your Rebel Yell." I do my Billy Idol Rebel Yell. I love that song.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes she'll have me move it up because she needs that break.
Yeah. And I'll do that too. I'll move something around, or we'll just skip over something entirely.
Let's talk about requests.
Okay.
Do you take requests? What happens when somebody comes up to you? Now, again, the types of venues that you're playing at aren't perhaps the most intimate where the fans are right in front of you,
Right.
but like we'll play places where people will come right up to the stage and
Mhm.
they may even throw $100 bill in the tip jar and they'll say,
Mhm.
listen, we really want to hear Sweet Home Alabama.
Yep.
Now, look, we all dread playing that song. It's a great song, one of the
Mhm.
greatest songs ever written, but it's so played out.
Mhm.
But you know what? Who are we, right? We're there to entertain people, man.
Right.
It's not about us, it's about them. So yeah, we'll play it, you know?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that stuff?
So, it does happen, believe it or not. There could be 1,000 people in front of us, and somebody weasels their way up and makes a request. And I get a kick out of the people that like to play stump the band. It's like they're and like
Emerson, Lake and Palmer, brain
yeah,
salad
right,
surgery.
exactly. And then somebody will request something like "Painted Black" by the Rolling Stones, and it's like, have you listened to anything we've played so far tonight? I mean, it's a great song,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's
Doesn't
definitely
fit
not
me.
coming out of this band.
Right.
And so that's happened before. So with requests, Maiden Cane probably has a full set list of 50 songs and then some others that we could pull out if we had to. We only usually play maybe 35, 40 a night. So if it's on there, yes, we'll play it for you, just for you, and I'll paint it up real nice.
40 songs in 90 minutes is a lot of songs, man.
Yeah, I think it turns out to
That means you're moving.
be, yeah, we move through them. We don't stop. It's a nonstop set. Maybe we don't hit all 40 of them. I'm not sure. I think there's maybe 35 on our New Year's set. I got to look and see.
Do you always have a slow song or two?
Yeah.
You put it in there, like people love Tennessee whiskey, and
Mm-hmm.
we're the type of band that, we play that kind of genre. So when we do it, a whole different crowd will come up and start slow
Oh,
dancing
yeah.
and they'll have the time of their life.
Yep. Absolutely. We try to, there's an ebb and a flow to your evening, as you know. And there's points where, like, the slow songs are going to bring out the dancers. So if you can't get anybody to play, you can't get anybody up in front of the stage, do a slow song. You'll get the slower dancers up there, and then you go with a rocker, and you'll get
What are the
everybody
slow
back up.
songs you're doing, the belly bumpers?
So right now, Maiden Cane's never really done any ballads. So this is the first. This is really the first or second year we've had "Keep on Loving You" in the set,
Good one.
which really isn't a ballad.
Everybody made out to that song in their
Right.
car with their first girlfriend.
Beats per minute, though, it's not really any slower than a lot of the other
You're
stuff
right.
we do. Sister Christian, we're playing now, which again sounds like a ballad, but it really isn't that much slower than everything. Come Sail Away.
That's what we do. We do that
Again,
song. That's a
yep,
great song.
yep. And then what's the other one now? We started doing High Enough by the Damn Yankees,
Wow.
and it's a bear of a song to
Sure
do.
is.
And that's a ballad. So
I think you would crush Open Arms.
I'd love to do Open Arms. That's a hard one. It's a lot harder. It's one of his harder songs to sing, especially because he goes off into the rafters at the very end of it. So for Journey, we've always done. We do the mashup of Enter Sandman and Don't Stop
Don't Stop Believing,
Believing.
yeah.
So that's cool. We do Any Way You
Any
Want
Motley
It.
Crue or Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi, a lot of Bon Jovi. You Could Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer. We've done the earlier one, Runaway, uh, Wanted Dead or Alive. We do a lot
Great
of Bon
stuff.
Jovi.
Did
Great
you see
stuff.
the Bon Jovi special on Hulu?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So I feel sorry for John because he wants to keep going.
Yeah.
He refers to his voice as his toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably had the best surgeons in the world trying to fix his voice.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's not going there. My philosophy is it's perfectly okay to retire, man, and stop.
Yeah.
You've done it all.
That's right.
What are your thoughts when you go see a band? Like I'll even say Motley Crue, for an example.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Neil isn't necessarily still cutting it, but you're paying a lot of money to go see him.
Right.
My part of me says, well, people are still paying for it, so keep doing it. Another part of me says, man, I don't want to see my rock stars struggling like that. What are your thoughts?
Well, to me, for one thing, if they're out there doing it, they deserve your respect because these are the guys who formed our youth. They're the soundtrack of our youth. So if I get an opportunity to go sit in front of Don Dokken, I'm not all that concerned about how great he is
Because he's a legend.
at almost
He could do
70
anything.
years old. He could do what he wants
Right,
to do.
right.
I saw Jeff Tate just recently and got to meet him. And at 67 years old, the man sounded incredible. Now I've seen Queensryche and Jeff Tate in many different tours over the years. And for a while, his voice was showing its age. This last time I saw him, he was incredible at 67 years old or however old, something in that neck of the woods. I'm not now. If I get to see him, I'm happy to see them. Um, that to me is everything. I just want to see him come out on that stage and take a microphone and sing. Maybe they can't do what they did before. Not many could. You know,
Well, I just saw Sammy Hagar, and
yeah.
he could still hit him, man.
He's still
He's
he's an
fantastic.
anomaly. I don't
I
even know
love
where he's
Sammy.
coming from. He's amazing.
So when you're off the stage, man, what are you doing, like, personal life? Like, what are some of your hobbies, some of your interests outside of music?
Well, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and that takes up pretty much every moment of my
Sure it
life.
does. High
So
school, right?
she's in high school. Yeah. I do a lot of video editing and video production. I do a lot of audio production. I've produced a couple of CDs for bands. I've done videos for bands. I do a lot of live demos for promotional venues for bands. I work. I do a lot of the for the events at Troll Music. I do a lot of the promo work, like posters, videos, commercials, whatever else is needed to promote the bands that are coming in. I do a lot of that. And then Billy is my best friend, so one of my best friends. So I help him at the store when he needs it. I also have an IT background as well, so I get in there and fix the computers and stuff when they break and
And
things
you're
like
helping out
that.
your church too.
And I work at the church. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do a lot of videos at the church. I handle the streaming service. Uh, I'm with the group that handles the streaming service every Sunday, and I play with the worship band every now and again.
So being an Italian guy from the Northeast, right?
Hmm.
You lived near New Haven,
Hmm.
and there's New Haven pizza,
Yeah,
right? Which is incredible. There's
unbelievable.
nothing like that down here.
Nope.
Now, I like the New York slice. I'm a Manhattan guy, so like I try to find the best pizza that I can.
Yeah.
And what happens is people will come down here and they'll claim that they're making authentic New York pizza.
Hmm.
And there's places that I've gone to that I'm like, yeah, it's okay, but
Yeah.
it's not New York style.
Yeah.
Same thing with bagels. What are your
Bagels, forget
what are
about
your
it.
thoughts? Like, where do you find all your good, authentic home style foods?
So the best pizza place I've found for getting close to Connecticut or New York pizza is Big Mike's in Venice.
Sure.
They're good. Um, the rest of them, it's good. It's just not what we consider pizza. I mean, it's good. It's
We were
okay.
spoiled.
We were
You
totally
know what I'm
spoiled.
saying? Because the water
Absolutely.
was different.
Absolutely.
You know,
Makes a
I think the
big
people that
difference.
were making it were like off the boat,
Yep.
making them since like John's on Bleecker Street.
Yep.
They came in the 1900s, you know what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? And then they had apprentices that went out and Patsy's came out of that and all these other places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then bagels, forget it. I haven't found a good bagel. There's nothing like a New York bagel.
There's a place up on University Parkway, which I know is kind of far for you. It's called Jersey Girl.
Ooh.
So they're doing the old fashioned way, they boil them right and they shellac them and bake them and all that kind of stuff. So it's a good bagel.
Jersey Girl.
And they make their own cream cheese.
Oh. Ooh.
So it is good.
I might have to go
But
check
it's
that
not like
out.
H&H or some of
Right.
those things that we grew
Right.
up to. It's and another good thing is Chinese food is different.
Oh, that's
down
another
here.
one. Absolutely.
For some reason, it's much better up there. Is it again?
Mhm.
It must be the water.
There's a couple of places and there's two places in Venice that are okay for Chinese food. Pretty good. One is China's Taste of Wang. If you can get past the name.
Has a little wang in it.
And then the other and then the other one is Canton, which is like kind of buried in the back over by where I don't even know what that street is. It's just kind of buried in the back there off 41. And it's next to a slightly questionable vape shop. So, so if you're willing to traipse through there, they're
So
good.
having a 16-year-old daughter, you must be a cook then. You must be able to make dinner.
No, I'm a terrible cook.
Really?
Yeah, no, my wife did a lot. My wife passed away about a
Yeah, I
year
heard.
and
I'm
a half
sorry
ago.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. And so I've had a really hard time adjusting. She fought cancer for 3 years. And in that last year and beyond, I took over a lot of meal prep, a lot of what she ate because, anybody that's ever beaten cancer has done it with a radical change in diet.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to make sure I could control or monitor what she was eating at least some of the time to keep her eating pure stuff or decent organic food, non-GMO stuff, whatever. So I learned a lot about nutrition and that kind of thing. And I cooked that way. So and my kids wouldn't eat anything. They're
Well,
just like, that's
16-year-olds want pizza and chicken fingers, right?
exactly. And they're like, well, we're hungry because dad doesn't make anything we eat, so since she passed, I've never been able to go back to cooking again. It's just I haven't felt like it.
Sure.
So now I throw things in the microwave. I make pizzas. I make raviolis and things you can boil. I go to my sister-in-law's for dinner a lot.
Do you do a sauce out of the jar? Or can you still make your own
I
sauce?
do a sauce out of the jar, baby. Rows, R-A-O, R-A-O, Row. Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, this has been a great hour.
Yeah, it's been an hour
Yeah,
already.
you're
Wow.
very fun to talk to. Easy guy to talk to, man.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
thank you for
So are
coming
you.
in. Yeah, thank you for coming in.
Well, my
And
pleasure.
we're gonna let people know, how can they find you? What's the best way to
So
find out about your
right now, the
shows?
Facebook page is the best way to go. Just search Maiden Cane on Facebook, or
And
search
that's
it in Google. Yep,
Maidenscane.
correct. So it's like a maiden like a woman and a cane like a candy cane. Maiden Cane. I keep grabbing this. So that's the best way. I'm working on getting the website live again. We got a new demo video coming out soon where I actually made a little ploy to the fans to send me all their phone videos. And I got some great freaking videos that I have never
That's gonna be
seen before.
fantastic, man.
Great stuff. Because I mean, every time I look on Google and I come up with something that someone posted somewhere that I never saw. But this one, I was getting them right from people's phones and stuff, and there's
Well,
some
being an
great
IT
stuff.
guy, do you try your best to record either audio or video
I used
of your
to.
shows?
I used to. I don't anymore. I did for the first year of Maiden Cane shows. I recorded everything. Now it's like,
It could drive you crazy, right?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I listened intently to the first year or two, to make sure I had everything the way it should sound, or tweak things or whatever.
Well, camera phones are getting better now. So, like, for
Hmm.
an example, sometimes I cringe when
Uh
a
huh.
fan puts something up on Facebook without my permission
Yep.
and it's us horrible.
Yep.
Other times you're pleasantly surprised because somebody will capture something good. And
Absolutely.
it all comes down to where they stand,
Exactly.
with the PA and whatnot.
Absolutely. And I'll tell fans over and over again, and if you can avoid it, either get right up on the band or get behind people who are in front of the band. Because if you're taking a video of a giant empty area and then your band, it looks like they're not playing to anybody. So if you're trying to do your friend's band a favor, get behind a little group of people and film from behind them, or get right up on the band.
Or if you just want audio, you want to stand by the sound booth, right?
Right. Stand by the sound booth, you'll get better audio.
Yeah.
Don't stand in front of the speaker because all you're going to get is distortion.
Especially at Twisted Fork. It's so loud there.
Absolutely. That's one of the things people say, like, well, the band doesn't sound very good on your phone. Well, of course not. I'm standing by the speaker. So,
So, Cliff, thanks for coming in.
hey, thanks.
I encourage people to
Thanks
come
for
see
having
you if
me.
they haven't.
Absolutely. New
Maiden
Year's Eve.
Cane. New Year's Eve is going to be huge. Now, is that going to be a ticketed event?
It is a ticketed event, but there
Okay.
is a general admission section that's free, but they don't guarantee anything. So get there early if you're
You know
gonna
what's
be in
great
general
about the
admission.
Twisted Fork is they put a buffet out.
Yeah.
So your price of your ticket, or the
Includes your
VIP,
buffet.
and it's good food too. I mean, it's quality
Absolutely.
stuff. I mean, it's like no
Absolutely.
joke.
Yeah. And if you take your lady out or your friends out for New Year's and you go to a classy restaurant or whatever, you're going to pay a lot of money on New Year's. Here, you're seeing the show. You got the buffet. You got a nice table to sit at. I mean, this is a great deal, even if they're charging $50, $100 a seat.
And it's important to let people know that it's covered. So even if there's a little bit of rain,
That's right.
you're going to be
It
fine.
still goes on. And it's a great supportive crowd. I love the people there. I love the bikers. They're such nice people. Everybody that hangs out at
Every
Twisted
time I
Fork
come
is
off that
wonderful.
stage, whether I do a daytime show or a nighttime show, I feel like a freaking rock star.
Absolutely. They're great, great people. I love them. Wonderful
Do you sell
people.
merch at your shows?
We do. We sell shirts most of the time.
And none of your CDs or some of your music?
We used to sell the CDs when we had CDs. We sold them out. We just never got any
But
more.
how do people get that? Like if they want to hear these original songs, how would they find them?
You can find them on Spotify. You can find them on not Bandmix. What's the other one? Apple Music. They're on most of the typical places where you find music. Just search for Maiden Cane and they'll come up.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Awesome.
And we'll see you
Thanks for
soon.
having me. All right. Sounds
All
good.
right.